But my dad was a complicated guy. I never really got mad at him. Getting mad at your parents is a trap, because at the end of the day, first off, getting mad at them doesn't fix anything that they did wrong. The real way you break a generational curse is not by having anger towards the person who was bad to you. It's generally an understanding that no man is without flaw, and your parents probably, in their own weird way, were just trying to navigate a complicated world. I always tell people, especially when making money or any area in life, if you catch it before too long, you can fix anything.
So hey everybody, Ryan and Lisa from Our Healer, Our Protector here, and we have Tai Lopez with us.
Thank you.
So welcome.
I'm glad to be on the new good show. It's a lot of podcasts out there, but it's not that many good ones.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's amazing here at your place, and having us over to actually bring you onto our show is a pretty amazing, warm welcome here. And we just flew in from Minneapolis, Minnesota yesterday, and
I came back early for you all. I was on a business retreat out in Palm Springs, so I wouldn't have come back till late at night.
Yeah. Oh.
Well, we
greatly appreciated, definitely from that side of it. So we're sitting here in your amazing library, and kind of the first thing that comes to mind is, how many books do you have in here?
I think here is 500 or something. I mean, I forget, because what happened is my main home's my farm, and I have all these books that wouldn't fit in the farmhouse. So I had all these books on the enclosed patio in boxes, and I think I told them to ship 500. I have some upstairs too. So I like collecting books. I've been collecting books. I think I started at around 10 or 12. I really started doing it around age 16, 17, 18. I realized books are a cheat code. It's basically you don't have enough time on earth to learn through trial and error. You'll be dead, and you'll still have not learned 99% of what you need to know. So one simple book, you download the consciousness, experience, the trial and errors, the mistakes from another person of a lifetime, and you can read a book in a day or two, or a week or two if you're a slower reader, or listen to them on audios. I was listening to a new book that I found here recently. Rockefeller's wrote, the richest man in modern history, John D. Rockefeller, wrote 38 letters to his son. Somebody compiled it in a book, and it's a wildly simple but profound book, especially if you want to make money.
No, I love it. Actually, I think before, I saw you post something about it, I had started reading it, and I was like, man, if I would have read this, before X, Y, and Z, some of the stuff that was in there, over all those years that he told, John Jay, kind of from that perspective was, really just amazing life lessons. And what are some of the lessons that you kind of take out of, your number of reads out of it?
Well, I think one of the biggest one is, success with money takes luck. But he said you can structure and design a life that has way more odds of luck. So, look, Elon Musk was born healthy. That's a luck event. 10 million kids are born in Africa with HIV on day one. So they didn't do anything wrong, right? They have a setback from birth. And so if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, he's lucky. He was born in a Western world, not in North Korea. He was, born to parents that weren't living below the poverty line, all these kind of things. But you wouldn't say that Mark Zuckerberg's only successful because of luck. So Rockefeller was trying to tell his son, reposition things in your life to increase luck. So I was recording a podcast on this the other day, and I was saying, for example, if your friend circle or your business networking circle is full of people doing where they're 20 years ahead of where you are now. So you're making $1 million, you want to make 100 million in 20 years. If you have people in your business network who are already doing 100 million, that will increase the odds of luck. They'll make introductions. They'll give you tips. They maybe partner with you, invest in you. So I think there's a lot of points in that book that are interesting in the 38 letters. It's also over John Rockefeller's life. So some of those were still written in the 1800s. And then some of them were written toward the end of his life in like the early 1920s. So it's interesting to see how the dad changed. In the 1800s, he still wasn't the richest, most powerful person on earth. By the 1900s, he was the king of the world, essentially. He was so rich, America had a recession in the early 1900s. He lent money to America to bail out the country. That's why the Federal Reserve was created, partly is because they were like, we don't want rich billionaires to bail us out. I'm not sure the Federal Reserve may have been worse than having guys like Rockefeller bail people out, but the structure of luck is also getting rid of the wrong people that are in your life. Yep. People drag you down like a weight.
Yep.
You know, it's like swimming with concrete boots. You're going to have an unlucky swimming experience if you're swimming with concrete boots on. No matter how hard you try, luck is against you. Gravity's against you. So in the same way, a lot of people feel unlucky. And I'm like, well, start with your social circle. More hours with the people that are winning, the people that offer constructive criticism, less hours around the exploitative ones, the ones that talk behind your back, the ones that are procrastinating. I mean, procrastination's a big one, and a lot of procrastination is from if we hang out with people who procrastinate, we procrastinate more. Every person's that way.
Absolutely.
You know? So I think that was a really good part in the book, and is just saying, how can you yes, you're going to have to be lucky, but there's things you can do that 10x your luck. Like the old cliche goes, the harder I work, the luckier I become.
Yeah.
So there's some truth to there. But another interesting concept that Rockefeller talks about, and a lot of, I have this course that I haven't advertised much. It's called the 5 dichotomies. Yeah. And so one thing that makes really high performing geniuses, whether it's Albert Einstein or Newton, Michelangelo, or somebody like Rockefeller, a genius with money, is they have these kind of opposite frameworks. And so they're confusing to listen to. So for example, Rockefeller says essentially to his son, you got to work really hard to be rich. But he also later in the book says, look, hard work alone, we all know people who work hard who make minimum wage. Yeah. So he's like, it's not enough. So hard work is a tricky one because hard work can fool you. I call this activity versus accomplishment. You can be working hard. I've seen people, I have I have a private client program where I mentor people one-on-one. These are usually people already doing 10 million a year, and it's $125,000 a year, right? And so a guy just got into it because he's been frustrated. He's a big real estate developer. He's frustrated with building his personal brand. So he thought it was just hard work. So for the last 2 years, this is a crazy story. For 2 years, he's posted 2 podcasts a week without missing. Yeah. Okay. So 100 a year times 2 years, 200. So on our first call, I said, can you go look at the stats on your downloads? How many people are listening to your Apple podcast? So he downloads, he goes, I never thought to look at that. His last episode got 12 downloads. Yeah. I said, all your hard work, you're better off to go down to the corner of a street and yell out your advice to people. You're going to reach more people than 100 episodes that no one ever heard, or 200 episodes.
Well, it's those blind spots that we have, and Rockefeller talks about that, to his son through some of it, where it's, like you need someone that has that higher level, just like you're talking about, that mentorship that gives you, that pulls you up out of the kind of the pit of whatever your social settings are. And he really kind of talked about, like, I think it was trust, like just make sure always that you tell the truth and trust those that you work with, because, you will have those blind spots. And if it's not going to pull you out of that, you're going to, all of a sudden only have 12 downloads when you did 200 episodes.
200 episodes. I said, I told him, you have confused activity with accomplishment. Yeah. And so the real truth is, the dichotomy is, you have to first have you have to work smart first. So for example, I asked him, I said, of all the episodes you've done, which got the most downloads? We looked at him. It was one where he had a big college football coach, I forget what university, like Duke or Temple or something, on the show. Yeah. And this one had literally 100 times more downloads, or 1,000x. Yeah. So I said, did you ever get another coach and do it again? You found a winning format. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh no, I never thought of it. I just did it once and it went well. So there's an example of first you're smart. You figure out, okay, the format that works is I have good guests.
Right.
Then you work hard on getting good guests. But what some people do is just start by working hard. He was just recording podcasts, him walking in the park or whatever. And he didn't have yet the authority with his personal brand that people wanted to listen.
Right.
So smart. Then once you know what smart work is, then hard work benefits you. But if you just start with hard work, I mean, single moms are the hardest workers in the world. Construction workers are the hardest workers. People who work in, coal miners are the hardest workers, by farmers, loggers, but they're not necessarily the highest paid. Yeah. Being paid a lot of money is more than hard work,
Well, I think of that for, Lisa being a nurse and, a previous life, I was a soldier.
Yeah.
And, I think I figured it out, the 4 years I spent in the Middle East deployed, I was getting paid pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. What do they pay you? What's a range?
I think if I looked all the way back to the first years, so the early 2000s, I was probably, I think it was 2,000 a month as a lieutenant, I was getting paid base pay. And,
were you in the war?
Yeah. So I was in Afghanistan, let's see, 04 to 05, Iraq in 2009. And then I was in Saudi Arabia, let's see, 12 to 13 and 19 to 20. So yeah, almost 4 years of combat tours.
What's Saudi Arabia like? Hot, isn't it?
Oh boy, it's hot. And, it was actually really interesting. As we came into your place here, I was like, this reminds me of some of the prince's palaces
in Saudi.
that I was
They're
in.
They're bigger than this one.
Yes,
those guys have crazy ones.
But still, I was certainly in some that were off the charts. And that's the thing. A lot of the military officers, are princes. And it's where they just plug them right in.
Yeah.
And it, nothing against it. I can see where it comes from and how, their hierarchy works in the country, across the country. But to me, I was blown away. Guys would show up in gold plated, like H1 Hummers, and we're out there like training and advising, and they just roll up and, put their uniform on, and you're just like, that's not how we'd operate.
A different kind of soldier. There's no one in the U.S. that rolls up in gold. Even the generals don't have gold plated stuff.
No, very, very, humble from that side of things when you really look at, even, our, kind of like we were talking earlier, the general officer and what they get paid, and we're talking about guys that, I was a 2-star general's executive officer, and he, I would have to work so hard to keep up with him. Just the guy's
smart guy,
just super smart. And, it was amazing how he operated, and he was a night owl though. And I was more of a morning guy, and to have to change that to work around it is like, boy, I tell you, because I was used to getting up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, so I could be ahead of him when he comes into work. But the problem is he works till midnight. It's like, boy, that's cutting into my 8, 8, and 8 kind of thing. And so very interesting.
Well, they say in love, I read a scientific report that says when a woman adjusts her sleep cycle to match the man, it shows she has a higher likelihood of truly being in love with you. Anyway, I posted that about 2 months ago. People got mad. People loved it. It went so viral. I probably got 5 to 20 million views from a couple posts. And women were saying, well, I do love my husband, but I am a night nurse or something like that. Anyway, but I think it's overall you had to adjust your sleep schedule to this guy.
Right.
I was like big boss man.
I think that's definitely, you see it, right? You would definitely from a hospital. We've had this conversation with a lot of.
Do you guys have now totally different schedules?
No, they're pretty close to each other.
He has a nice schedule.
Yeah. My schedule between, retired 3 years ago from the Army, did Fortune 500 for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then I was laid off last summer in a big layoff. And
is AI taking jobs?
No, it wasn't. I think it was not having it. It was risk management. So it was this system of, is the juice worth the squeeze? And you could easily show the KPIs of absolutely, like our department was saving millions of dollars.
Right.
But could we utilize AI across the board, from the human capital side of it? And I don't think I think it was a downsizing overall. And then as we move forward, for me, it was protection. I was going through my divorce actually, and became one where I started, our Protector Development, the business that, I run today, which is actually, I'm extremely passionate about, because you have the science side of the soldier in me, but then more the faith-based side where I kind of, I'm a recovering alcoholic and prescription drug addict, from, having about 1,700 pages of medical problems over my military career, being just broken, jumping out of airplanes and,
Did the alcoholism happen after you were enlisted?
No, it started.
My dad was an alcoholic.
So my dad, recovering alcoholic, 40 years, PTSD from Vietnam. And so he was 6 when I sobered up. And so
he was 60, you said?
Huh? No, I was 6 when he sobered up.
Oh, so because I was like, I thought you said you sobered up at 6. I was like, you started young.
No, I was 4. I was 12 when I started drinking, so like 6th grade. And
it's very genetic. It's a genetic. It goes down the bloodlines.
Yeah.
Luckily, I got my mom's side. She's not addictive, but one of my brothers is an addict. Unfortunately,
it's hard, but I think there's ways to combat it, like earlier on than later. I mean, that's something we could certainly get into.
So you have that kind of in the book, right?
The book gets after this. God Only Knows When the Devil Comes for You, a Second Chance at Life. And for me, it was through my recovery process of like 18 months of how long it took me to, Harvard.
Is that what it took?
It took 18 months to, be here today with somebody that I can not have like a complete meltdown over, or, see myself snap because traffic on the way here is X, Y, and Z. And
so did alcohol use it to mellow? Was it for anxiety?
I would say it was between anxiety, depression, the pain. I use prescription drugs too, like gabapentin,
opioid stuff.
Yeah. And then I've had a number of surgeries on the lower extremities of my body. And Oxy is what I got hooked on when I blew my Achilles out about 14 years ago.
Yeah, doctors have to come up with something better than opioids, because I broke my ankle and the doctor gave me opioids and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go through the pain. He's like, he was like, you're the only person that didn't take any. I'm like, because of the pain of getting addicted to opioid. One of my brothers has been addicted since he was 17.
Yeah,
and he's the nicest guy, but he just can't break it.
Right.
And so I don't know what's wrong with America. I guarantee you there's things even marijuana is not as bad really for people as alcohol. Look at crime. There's literally, I had a big house party once and all these NFL guys came. NFL guys, if you've never been around, if you're not American, and you think your rugby guys are big, no. When NFL guys come, these guys are 6'8", 350 pounds. That's 205 centimeters and like 160 kilos. Anyway, so there was like 100 people in my backyard of NFL guys. And I was thinking, and I had security, but I was thinking, if these guys get drunk, nothing makes a man, the worst side of people comes out with alcohol. I said, we won't be able to stop these guys. Yeah. So one of the guys goes, he had a bag of weed. It's legal in California. He goes, do you mind if I pass out joints to everybody? I was like, please pass out. He got everybody. It was the dude throwing the party. He had every NFL guy. And the guys was like, everything's good. And so no fights. When's the last time someone committed crimes? It's funny that in America they made weed illegal, but alcohol legal, because over 50% of people in prison, alcohol had something to do with that moment where they shot somebody, killed somebody. Alcohol's nasty.
It is nasty.
It to me, it's just kind of like it says in the title, God Only Knows When the Devil Comes for You. It's something inside you, whatever it is that comes out. And for me, definitely alcohol. I can go back. I played rugby in college, got arrested like my freshman year. Let's great idea. Minneapolis, Minnesota to Grand Forks, North Dakota. Hey, let's drive home after being at the bar all night, 6 hours.
Was that when you got arrested?
And I got arrested like about
DUI,
a mile. And, it's just, when I look at it, it's how many chances do we give somebody, like when it comes to the alcohol side of it, and there's ways around it. When we really break it down, and I really believe it's the belief system side of it, and I would love to get your take on it. A higher power, for me, I grew up Catholic. So like God, the foundation for my faith was, built, but there's a lot of rules in Catholicism.
Right.
And so when I got married, I married a Lutheran. I was like, sweet, less rules.
Right.
It was just Catholic light. And we had a great marriage for, 25 years, 2 beautiful children. But I was like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm just the whole faith thing, I mean, it was probably, I was there, but it was just like, I had lost it a little bit.
Yeah.
And when I sobered up, all of a sudden, it's like you go to meetings and it's higher power and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, I believe, but I don't think I trust.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we fast forward a couple months of being sober, and I'm like, I had my first spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I think I get this. If I wake up in the morning and,
it was amazing.
I'm
I
grateful.
got to witness it.
You were there?
And
you were around? Yeah.
Yeah. And Lisa's
You
been.
can notice a difference?
Oh, yeah. I saw it in him the first time I met him, and he was not confident in himself. And that's what
So you saw his confidence
Oh,
go
yeah.
up after the spiritual awakening.
And I have an unwavering faith in God. I've never doubted him. Everything that have happened in life, I've never felt sorry for myself. It just made me step up higher, and I knew that God had a plan for me.
Were you Lutheran?
Yep, I'm Lutheran.
Yeah, because you're from Minnesota.
Yep.
There's a lot of Swedish people there.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm Swedish.
Are you Swedish?
Yes.
I lived part-time in Sweden and Denmark. What's the last name? You have a Swedish name?
Maiden name Reichert and Kellerup. It'd be Kellerup.
Yeah, Kellerup is more Swedish than
Yeah.
Piker.
Yeah.
Piker
Piker's
sounds
Yeah.
English.
Yeah.
There's a city in Denmark called Hellerup. It's similar.
Yeah.
Hell. How do you spell
I gotta think of this. KJ Kellerup.
it? Oh,
KJ.
that's definitely Scandinavian.
Yeah.
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 It's, yeah. So, because like,
Hello, I'm drawing a blank right now.
well,
I should know
put,
how to
put you
spell
on the
these.
spot. You
Yeah.
got all these cameras.
Yeah.
You got, somebody who's, been around for a number of years and knows a lot. You read this many books. I'm impressed by it. But no, you're Piker's Danish, right?
German.
Piker, yeah, German.
German.
Gert,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But remember, Germany and Denmark have fought and switched lands, and it's Northern European. You look Northern European, and they're very Lutheran.
I have to tell you something funny that you brought this up for my maiden name. So I met Ryan, and his last name is Reichert, and my
Right.
maiden name is Pikert.
Right.
So
Okay. So it's a sign.
Yeah, very much so.
Did you take that as a sign?
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
Were you married and divorced too?
Yep.
And you have kids separate?
Yep. We have kids separate. Our kids have not met each other.
Oh, really? They
No.
married, but they're adults. Both of them? No.
17 and 23 for me.
And 17 and 19 for me.
So they're almost, they're
They're-
essentially.
it's to that point, but when things
Someday.
are ugly in relationships or
Oh.
post-divorce relationships.
Oh, so it's tough to get that. Yeah.
It's certainly my oldest, who's 19. Very proud of Lauren, who just finished her freshman year at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. She's coming back into my life and so forth, which is amazing.
Did she have to go through the phase where she's mad at you?
I think so. We had a number of different times where, it's like still in my life. And then I don't know when it went out of my life. And then actually we just had a great trip last week to South Carolina. So she's interior design and real estate is what she'd like to work on in the next life. And so we'll see where she goes with it. She was early on an entrepreneur in junior high, had a great teacher when we lived in Washington State at Fort Lewis. And it's really interesting because she started making earrings and started her own business and all these things. So I think I see the entrepreneur in her, down the road as well.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
People have to go through that phase. Like Mark Twain said, he's like, when he's young, my dad was the smartest man I knew. When I became a teenager, he was an idiot. When I was 20, I saw everything he did wrong. And then as I got older, I realized he knew what he was talking about. And it's like, it's amazing how he got smarter as I got older. The truth was he was smart all along. Kids got that phase where they're, you see it in animals. I have a big farm. There's a stage where, like I have cows where the calf tries to go off on its own. And it's that independence. I'm a sovereign human. But, my dad was a complicated guy. I never really got mad at him. I tell people, getting mad at your parents is a trap because at the end of the day, first off, getting mad at them doesn't fix anything that they did wrong. Yep. Number two, when your parents had you, it was their first time around in this earth, man. It's not like they're 700 years old, Methuselah, and they know what to do perfectly, and they're being mean to you by being horrible parents. Most of the time, horrible parents had horrible parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a super simple cycle. You said you're Christian, like the Bible says, God will visit the sins of the parents on the children, generational curses. So most bad families, it's essentially a generational curse. So the real way you break a generational curse is not by having anger towards the person who was bad to you. It's generally an understanding that no man is without flaw, and your parents probably in their own weird way were just trying to navigate a complicated world.
Mm-hmm.
Think of all the complicated things that happened. Like you said, your dad was in the Vietnam War. That was a crazy war. The soldiers there not only were they exposed to trauma, but they had all this chemical trauma too. A lot of people were affected spraying that Agent Orange stuff. That stuff blows back on you. Mm-hmm. They were doing experimental weird things. So, your dad was an alcoholic. I find my dad was an alcoholic. One of my brothers is addicted. One of my brothers, weed's okay if you take a little, but he went crazy with weed. It's usually people that have anxiety and depression that those were like, I don't have anxiety. And so alcohol and weed and opioids or whatever, it never altered my state to a better place. But that's what I said, really the root cause of a lot of alcoholism and a lot of drug addiction is some form of high anxiety. And it's just, you just cope. You're like, shit, I'm on edge all the time. And when I take this, pops the edge down. A better solution to that, though, if you can pull it off, go live on a farm. If you have high anxiety, you don't do as well in a big, overly stimulated city, for example. So sometimes changing your environment, I've seen that. People with high anxiety who move from Manhattan to Montana, instead of having to drink alcohol, they just naturally get more calm. There's less variables, less factors hitting you all the time.
Kind of like that more like grounding, earthly.
Back to the earth.
Part of the universal side of
back
it.
to God, you could say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, depending on.
Back to the land.
Yeah,
My best ideas and the stuff that I find solutions to is on my long walks.
Yeah, for sure.
That's where, if anybody's watching me walking, I'm not singing, I'm talking to God. And grounding myself.
I forget what is a famous philosopher. So there's almost nothing that can't be solved with a long walk.
Right.
I forget who said that, but it's true. It's almost nothing that can't be solved in a long, relaxing walk with no other people. Most of your problems in life are other people. So essentially a long walk alone, you isolate yourself just long enough and you get a little, zone 2 cardio in, brain works better. I think maybe there'd be half as many wars if all the generals and emperors took a 3-hour walk before they declared war and said, should I really bring death and destruction to a couple million people? But addiction's one of my first private client who I ever really mentored was a guy named James Swanwick in 2013. And he was an Australian guy. And he's like, I've started 5 businesses. They've done okay. I've made, $1 million a year gross, but not that much profit. And I said, okay. Back then my program was $25,000 a year. And I did a talk. It was in my living room up in Hollywood. And he came up to me. He's like, I want to get in. I want to change. I want to make money. Anyway, he said, I inherited a small piece of land in Australia. He's Australian, from my grandma. And I can sell it for $24,000. Will you take 24, not 25? And I was like, okay. And he's like, are you sure this is going to work? Because I'm selling my grandma's inherited land, anyway, now he's built this big Swanee blue blocker glasses. I think he sold it recently. But he launched this company called, I think it's No Alcohol, something like No Alcohol Challenge.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, it's his version of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And he's crushing. He wrote me. He's like, this is a big business. So many people, have addiction problems. Like addiction is, and by the way, now you have porn addiction is a big thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or as they say, if you want it to go on Instagram, you have to say corn addiction. They ban
is
it.
that,
Yeah, that's why I see
so
people.
if you say porn,
It won't go viral as much. So you could
Okay.
say beep it out or say corn addiction. That does not mean like corn on the cob. But humans now, I think, is go back to the land. You know, like I lived with the Amish for 2.5 years. There's some Amish in Minnesota too.
Oh yeah, yes, there's.
You know, I got an Amish guy that I live with. He's now in a place called Fertile, Minnesota.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a cold place.
Yep. North of us.
And you know, Amish, part of it, they're very Christian. Amish are very religious, and they also live pretty close to the land, and they have big families, and they have no real addiction problems. I mean, maybe 1 out of 50,000 Amish is alcoholic. Forget what you see on TV. Those are not real Amish. There's no, people are like, I watch an Amish reality show. I'm like, that's not Amish don't go on TV. They're not even in pictures. So I think that now humans, when my grandma was born in 1918, 90% of the world lived in either a small town or a farm, countryside, and 10% lived in big cities. And now when she died, sadly, in 2020, she was 102. The world was flipped. 90% of people live in big urban metropolis. And you get lost, you get lost. I lived in Manhattan. Sometimes there's, even in the nice parts, if you're not near a park, there's no plants. It's just concrete buildings and bags of trash and people walking by frantically. And I was in Sao Paulo. I go to Brazil a good bit. And if you think your city's big, go to Sao Paulo. You know, Sao Paulo has 18,000 high-rise buildings. How many downtown LA have? 10? 20? They have 18,000. You have to go to look. And people go nuts there. They just lose track of reality. You go to there's huge drug addiction parts of Brazil, because there it's like India. There's no support. Right. You can die of starvation in India. I was in India and a guy outside of my hotel in Hyderabad died of starvation. I was a teenager. I didn't have money to help really. But Brazil, I was going to this valet and I was with Big Rome, came with me, Adrian, down there to Brazil. And I walked out. I don't get scared easy. There was a homeless dude who was basically naked, okay? But he had a carpet over himself and he was so dirty that like his hair he looked like the abominable snowman, but brown with dirt. And even the valet guys threw rocks at him to keep him away. Even Big Rome was like, I ain't getting near that guy. It was like, he's naked and he had like shoes, sandals. So what do people do when they have nothing? Drugs takes them.
Well, it's one of those take it away. I mean, I know for me, think about wherever I was at mentally, I drank away a 25-year relationship. Yep. My 2 girls would have been, in, I guess, back it off a bit, 17 and 15 when it ended, I guess, and I finally sobered up. So you feel like you lost years with them? Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I lost years being gone just in the military. I mean, I was probably gone, I think, Michelle and I figured it out. Of the 25 years we were together, I think 13 of it I was gone, so half of our relationship. Like literally in another country. In another country. What's the longest you went without being able to see your kids? Well, we, with having like FaceTime and different things. No, I mean in person. Like in person, probably like 6 to 8 months. That's tough. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of it like Boo, the youngest. I get emotional over this because, she counted, how many birthdays that I missed. And Lauren, the oldest, I only missed like, I think 1 or 2 of her birthdays, but like Boo, I missed quite a few. I mean, well over half kind of thing. And, that's where I can understand like her frustrations in all this, right? Like that they weren't enough. Yeah. Kind of thing. Like where I, the demons that I faced on a day-to-day, that they were not enough for me to conquer it. I was able to go away all those times and fight, like I always say, trying to do bad things to bad people. No issue with that. Right. But I come home and my anxiety and my depression, my fears, right? Like I could not go after them. I was just afraid, I guess.
You know what, I would say to your daughter, and it's not to dismiss her feelings that you missed, but like I said, my dad was an alcoholic and missed all of my birthdays. I think my real dad never came. I don't think my dad ever came to one of my birthdays in my life. But I never got mad at him. And one way I think about it is, you go back in time, you're Swedish, men used to go to Vikings, would go in a wooden boat in the ocean, and not just any ocean, but in the Arctic Ocean with icebergs and this, and they'd go, and if they came back, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. And so humans survive. If I was talking to your daughter, I'd say, listen, that's water under the bridge. It sucks. It sucks that my dad wasn't there, but your dad's still alive. My dad's dead.
Right.
And so I was like, you can make up for it now. I always tell people, especially even making money or any area in life, if you catch it before too long, you can fix anything. I can't fix it with my dad. My dad's not alive. It's not possible for me to get back the years that I missed with my alcoholic dad. He was in prison too. But your daughter can, you know what I mean? So you gotta, some people say you shouldn't compare people's trauma, but I disagree with that. I think we should compare ourselves to people who have more trauma. I think it's okay to minimize, because if you don't do that and your daughter just gets too mad at you, she'll miss out on the ability to know you now. And you have it's kind of a cool relationship you have. She's older now. You can have a more powerful connection.
Absolutely.
So as long as you guys are still alive, you got to be like, wait, it sucks. I'm sorry. But it's not like you deserted them. You were protecting your country, and that's how you made money.
Yeah.
And men have done that my grandma left in 1936. There's a book, it's a best-selling book on Amazon by Melita Mishman about my grandma. And my grandma went to a small meeting, and Adolf Hitler came there. My grandma's friend turned into Hitler Youth. Okay, her name's Melita Mishman. It's a New York Times best-selling book, and you'll see that the foreword is to my grandma, Mary Ann Birkenrode. And my grandma said, this guy's crazy. She didn't like men who yelled, and he yelled all the time. I'll say, what was Hitler like? It was a small park. He pulled up in a convertible Mercedes. And I said, what was it like? She's like, I hated him immediately. I said, why? He's like, he yelled. My grandma did not like if you yelled. She was European, and he ranted. And so my grandma went home. She was 18. She said, we need to leave. And nobody left except her. So at 1939, my grandma left. She never saw her brother again because he got killed. He was in the Nazi army, even though he wasn't a Nazi. He was just, you got drafted, all boys. Yep. He got shot in the stomach at the Battle of Stalingrad. And my grandma never saw him again. No FaceTime. Yeah. No email. There was no phone. Yeah. So my grandma didn't see her mom again for 8 years. Younger brother, she never saw again. Most of her cousins were killed. Pretty much all the men in her family. So at least when you were at war, you could FaceTime with your kids.
Well, I think of like the emotional maturity that we talk about so much with just all people.
Yes.
And, you look at it from, you think of families, like a father passes away, the mother had passed away maybe earlier, and brothers and sisters are, executors of the will and so forth, and start dividing. And then all of a sudden, a family that was very tight, just poof, what happens to them, you know? And you're like, how is that possible to think that there's that much power, that much darkness in the world that can, a family that was so tight because a father was still alive, and then he passes away, and then now no one talks to each other anymore. And
nothing breaks up happy families more than bad inheritances, where it's not fair, where it's not clear. Before you die, you have a clear will for your kids. The whole family goes to war with each other.
Tai, you were talking about something earlier. Well, you're talking, I could listen to you all day long, first of all. The knowledge that you have. So my grandma died at 100, and Ryan's grandma died at 99. And you talked about your grandma at 102.
You guys have good genes.
Yeah, we do. But that generation was closer to the earth.
Yes, for sure.
And how they grew up, and they worked together as a family.
Yep.
The modern world, we don't have that. We have our cell phones.
Yeah.
We have our computers.
Yeah.
Kids go off to other rooms.
Yes.
Back then, they didn't have TV. They played games together. They played their own music
Yeah.
in the room.
By the
and-
way, you should go back to Sweden now. If you go to real Sweden, like not Stockholm where it's a lot of non-Swedish people, if you go to real Sweden, all Swedish houses are built very small. There's no mansions in Sweden. You could be the richest. The guy who started Minecraft, Swedish guy, he had to move to Beverly Hills here to get a mansion.
Right.
They have like one living room and one bathroom.
Yeah.
I dated a Swedish girl and I'd be like, you have 2 bathrooms? All right, we got one. You got to share it. So that, as bad as that sounds to an American, it also keeps everybody together.
Yeah.
Like, the living room is right next to the dining room, so right next to the kitchen. Yeah, American culture has a lot, not just American, but the world has gotten too high tech.
There's a country song, I think, or whatever. Love grows better in small houses or something. But it's so true. I think of that even in like my marriage or whatever. Like when we had smaller homes, less money, even, you might have some friction of paying the bills. But I mean, we were I think happy, right?
Yeah.
Like at least peace and joy were in the home, which normally creates happiness.
Well, social media allows you to see how other people live. My dad grew up very poor in Spanish Harlem, New York. And his sister, my aunt, used to tell me when we were young in Harlem, we didn't know we were poor because everybody was poor. They lived in the projects, 139th Street or whatever Spanish Harlem is. And he said every day we come home from school, before we went to bed, we'd wash. We had one pair of clothes for school. So we washed it, scrubbed it in the bathroom and hung it. And then the morning we woke up, it was dry and we'd put it back on.
Right.
And she said, I didn't know that wasn't normal. All my friends had. So the problem with modern world is if you don't have money and your kids have an Instagram, that's why I'm like, don't give your kids Instagram for a long time. Give your kids Instagram when they're like my son. I'm like, you can have social media when you're 17 and a half, 6 months.
Yeah, I
18.
think ours started a little bit earlier.
Oh man,
I know.
Phones is like, and there's worse stuff on phones than social media. Like,
Then encyclopedias, what we had back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and magazines.
yeah, my grandma called any kind of device. She was old. My grandpa was old school, and he called it the idiot box. So I wasn't. I would have to wait till my grandpa went to bed and I could sneak. My grandma would let me watch PBS Nature.
Yeah.
Or what's Masterpiece Theater. That's the most boring show for kids ever create. If you want to torture your kids, be like, if you don't listen to me, you got to watch Masterpiece Theater. It's like a discussion of literature by 2 adult British guys in front of a fireplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, as we wrap up here, tell me, what's your favorite passage in the book? God only knows when the devil comes for you. A second chance at life. That's what everybody wants, a second chance. There's not one human who lives into adulthood that goes, I wish I could do one thing over. So what do you think, if you had to summarize this book in an elevator speech, like in walks Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He was commander-in-chief when you were president. And he's only going up 1 floor.
Yeah.
And he sees your book and he goes, what's that? And you go, I wrote this book. He goes, what's it about? Yeah. And you got 1 floor. What would you tell him?
Yeah, I'd say, one, sir.
Yeah.
But it would be, if you get your hands on this book early enough in life, you'll never need a second chance, because if you do what it says in these 12 chapters, like you'll have everything figured out as you grow in life, and you just rehearse it every morning and every night before you go to bed. And it'll establish what I call your spiritual. So you can't have spiritual without ritual. So what your morning routine looks like, basically, and your night routine looks like, establish the rest of your day. And then as you sleep, your night, and you're protected. So that's kind of where we get the Hour Protector development.
Yeah.
So for those who
it's a little bit like Rockefeller, you structure your life.
Yes.
If you can structure, that's military. One good thing about the military, they have good structure.
Yeah. Absolutely. So in that,
where's the best place to get it? You gonna put it on Amazon?
So it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
It'll be released on Tuesday, 3 June. So by the time this airs, it'll actually already be out. And
thanks for I got the first autographed copy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it becomes a New York Times bestseller, I can resell this if I need money and be like, this book's worth $5,000 because it's the original. No, I won't resell it.
No, no, to me, I think some of the stuff in it though, Tai, is really, where I found kind of that foundational belief system that my mother, amazing. She was a school teacher for over 40 years. I couldn't read when I was in third grade. Everyone thought like, oh, you started reading when you were like 3 years old. And if a book didn't have pictures in it, I couldn't read it, but I could, garner enough out of it through my whole life. And I faked the funk all the way into third grade.
Well, Einstein couldn't read for a long time. One of the teachers told Einstein's parents, "You think your kid's retarded?" The worst evaluation of intelligence in history, that school teacher. I don't think this Einstein kid's very smart. Some kids take a second.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the one I'd look at it always is, for those of us that do need a second chance in life. Like I kind of look at it as like, just give me time. I'll make you so proud. Yeah. And I've always been able to do that, in everything I've done in life because I have needed a second chance. Yeah. But I think today, I had a call with somebody, a coach, and they were like, no, if you read this before, like you don't need a second chance.
That's
like,
better.
I've read this. And if I would have done all the things you say in this book, like no second chance needed.
Yep.
You're the one who wrote the book, Ryan. So hello, you need a second chance, and here we are, never would have thought this.
Did you give it to your daughter?
They'll be getting it here next week. Yeah. With the rest of the world. Literally it's a funny story. The author copies didn't make it the first time around. They're supposed to be at the beginning of May. Never showed up. Got missed UPS. I don't know where they're at. I did see on eBay somebody selling them. So
really? Yeah, people steal stuff. I've had that.
And so that's okay. So we got literally, I think it was it's Thursday today. So like Tuesday we got them. And I packed enough that I could put in a carry-on. And here we are. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for this. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Tai. And when you were talking about being a nurse and working hard, and this is a new adventure for us, and we're super excited, and we want to go all the way, and we want to help others. Yeah. And we're going to show people that you can change your life in a different direction.
That's awesome. It's a good podcast.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.